Welcome back to the part 2 of CSS Battle Chrome extension. So we have already created our server-side code. Let's try to build the Chrome extension code and see how we can make the API call and minify the HTML that we have. So for this, what I'll do, I'll quickly go back to the terminal and I need to create one more project. So for this Chrome extension, we are going to use a boilerplate that we have already. I have created a video on this. So if you guys want, you can check that out. So this React Chrome extension boilerplate, I'll link this in the description. So what we need to do is we need to clone this. First thing is git clone this, and we can go inside this. So change directory to what is the name, React. Yeah, so we can say code. So this is going to open VS Code for us. Now in this we need to do, the first thing is we need to install all the dependencies which are listed in package.json. So I'll open the terminal here and say npm install. Now while this is being installed, let's explore this boilerplate a little bit and try to see what do we have. We have everything here. If you know a little bit about Chrome extensions, so in Chrome extension, we have a background script, a content script, a pop-up script, one options page. There are more things like when you open our DevTools. In DevTools, you can also add tabs through Chrome extension. So that is also there, which is not included in this boilerplate. But yeah, there are few boilerplates available on GitHub where you can find that as well. For our use case, this is perfect. We don't even need options and pop-up that much, and like not at all actually. We don't need these options and pop-up, but I'm going to leave these anyways. And we are majorly going to work in content and background. So let's start with the manifest file, because manifest file is one of the most important file of Chrome extension, and you need to declare everything and you need to configure it properly for your Chrome extension to work. So in this React, so this is the boilerplate, or we can change the name. Let's make sure that we have a name which we want for our extension. So we'll have CSS battle extension. CSS battle extension. For description, we can say something different. Let's say Chrome extension. I'll change the casing here also. Chrome extension to minify HTML. So yeah, this is what we need. We don't need these many icons. I'm going to use in fact one icon which will be I think in downloads I have. So this is the icon that I need. I'll quickly put this in in the public folder itself. So what I'll do, I'll create one folder here. I mean, I don't need a folder, but it's good to put images separately so that you don't get confused. Otherwise this public folder will have a lot of files and you won't know what is what. So yeah, so this is what we have. This is the icon we are going to use. You can also copy this from the code or from the GitHub. So this is what we had. We need 128 by 128 logo. So I'm going to provide the URL here, images/extension icon. This is background.js, which we have mentioned. Default pop-up is popup.html. We need an icon for this also. I'm going to use the same thing here. So in icons, I can just copy this and put it here. Perfect. Now in options page, we are not going to use options page, but let's leave it there. We don't need to do anything there. So if you right click on your extension and click on options, this is the page that you are going to see. This one, options page. Now in content script, we need to make sure that it runs on CSS battle domain. So let's quickly go over there and see what do we have. So this is where we want to make it run. So we can just copy this and put it here. Yeah, so this is the domain that we have, and all these things are routes. So we don't want to specify any route, we don't want it to run on a particular route, but on this domain. So anything that comes after this is going to be considered as part of this domain. So so it should match this particular string in our case. And I'm going to replace the this domain with all the other we have, and I think this one also. Yeah, I think this is all we need. All the changes are done for manifest. Then we have our content file. So we have already installed all the dependencies. Let's try to run the project and see if it's even working. So we'll say npm start, it should start. Yeah, so it has opened this React app, a normal React app, but we don't need to worry about this. So this is coming from here. What we need to see is whether we are able to load the extension. So make sure that developer mode is toggled on, and we can have load unpacked. So if you click here, I don't know exactly where I am. So let's go back to the playground folder. Wherever you have your extension, you can go there, and inside that, after running the React server, after running this project, after doing npm start, you should be able to see a watch folder. So you can just select that folder and load it here. So it should load without any issues. Now if I refresh this, I see live reload works, and then it goes away. I don't know whether you guys were able to see it, but let's just inspect this and just try to make sure that it's not going away. So you see this content script insertion point. This is coming from our content script. So this is where we are defining it. So this is the content script insertion point, and this is what we are rendering inside it. Live reload works. So if I expand this and see, I can see it here. Right now I'm not able to see it on the DOM because of some styling. If I just quickly make this something position fixed or something like that, and say z index is more, say 9. Yeah, now I can see it on the UI. So this is there. So we will make sure that our content shows up on the page. Now what we need to do, we need to target this particular container, and if I inspect this container, so what I see a button group with background, and inside that I have one more div with button group, and this button group is what holding all the buttons that we see here. So I need to target this, and this should be my insertion point. Instead of putting this directly in the body, I need to make sure that I put this in this area. So for that I need to modify the content script here. So what I need is, I need a app container. So I'll just say app container, and this will just give me the button container. So the things that we just discussed, so give me the button container. Now this is something I want to put in a different file so that we have some sort of abstraction going on. So I'll just create a file, and I don't want a file to be floating around here and there. I'll put it in a utils folder, and let's name it dom.js. You can name it whatever you want. I can export get button container from here, and the responsibility of this function is to return the button container. So let's say document dot query selector, and this is where our selector should come. So button selector should come here. So button selector, right? Now what should be our button selector? So as we already know that there are a few set of classes that we can look. So this one, button group with background, and then inside that we have button group. Now it's a good practice if you combine the selectors, because if you won't do it, there might be multiple classes which are present, and it can leads to some error in the future. So what I will do, I will say button selector is this particular class, but I don't want to select the outer container. What I want to select is inside this, there is one more button group. So this is something that I want to select. So if I select this, then I want to return this directly, and this is where I'll get the app container. Now what I'll do, I'll say app container dot append child. I want to append a child, and what should be that child? That child would be the insertion point. So I want to insert this, and I don't need this, to be honest, because this is what I'm doing here. This is how I was inserting it, so I don't want to insert it in the body. I'll just move this comment here, and creating a root of this insertion point, and then rendering the app. So let's see whether this is working. So get button container is not defined. Let me just see. It should actually give me, yeah, this. So this should work without any issue. Now what we need, we just need to refresh, so it auto refreshes, but we do not see anything here. So let's inspect and try to see what's happening. Now this is one of the classic issues with Chrome extensions, because you are trying to inject or insert something in a container which is not loaded yet, so you need to wait for it. So what one way to do is we can put set timeout like this. Set timeout, we can do everything once this is done. So set timeout, let's wait for, I don't know, let's say 2 seconds. So I'll wait for 2 seconds, and then I'll do this. So for 2 seconds nothing happens, and then I'm able to see the live reload works. Now the problem is it depends on system to system, your network. So it is working fine for me when I'm putting 2 seconds, but if your system is slow, if your network is slow, it might take more time. So this is not the correct approach. Putting timeouts like this, it's gonna lead to a lot of issues later on. Maybe for 1-2 cases or some particular scenarios it's okay, but we cannot use this as a fix. So what we need to do is we need to do something called DOM mutation. We need to add event listener for our DOM, and then we see whether a particular node is inserted in the DOM, and then we run a particular code. So how do we do that? So there is this one library called Arrive. I don't know whether you people have heard about it, but it's an amazing library. So Arrive.js, yeah, I think this is the one. So in this you can download this one. So this is a very small library, and it works every time. Like I've used this a lot. So what I'll do, I'll just copy this and create a folder. I'll also link this in the description. You can get it from there. So I'll create one more file here. Let's say arrive.js, and I'll just put it here. So this is the library. Now I also want to make sure that because there are linting and all of that, I just don't want any issues to come up, any errors. So I'll just put one line which says ESLint disable. I mean, you guys might not even need to do this, but this is just to keep everything happy. Now this is the library that we need to use in order to use the DOM mutation. Now DOM mutation is something more of a JavaScript concept, obviously. So you can do that without using a library, but it's better to use this library. It's very lightweight and it gets the job done. And there are a lot of things that you need to implement for DOM mutation. You have to clear DOM events and all of these. So there is a lot of complexity which is being reduced by using this library. So now how do we use this library? It's pretty straightforward. So what we need to do is first we will check. So I'll just revert this code to how it was earlier. So this is what we had. So when we are doing this app container, I get button container. So first we will check if app container is there. So if we have this already, then we don't need anything. We just go here and you know we just go here and try to append this and do everything that we need. But if we don't have this, then what we are going to do, we are going to set one event listener. So what we will do, we will say let's say set timeout, or maybe let's not use set timeout, we will directly write it here. We will say else if this is not there, then we are going to say document dot arrive, and we want our button selectors. So button selectors we have written in this, so we can say, we can export this also, and we'll have button selector here. So button selector, and then once we get any element in this, so the first argument that you get is element, and you can say add the entry point. So exactly the same thing you need to do here. So doing this, you can just copy this and put it here, and instead of app container it will be element. Now obviously you can put this inside a function again so that you don't have to copy and paste, but it's okay. I mean this much repetition is fine, there is no issue with that. So now if I reload this, go back here and try to reload, do I get any issues? Oh, okay, so it says document.arrive is not a function. Now why is that? Since we have included this in our project, but we are not telling the webpack that we need to include this file, not the manifest.json, that we are not declaring this file anywhere to be used. So what we need to do is, now we need this file to be used in content script. So what we should do, we should go to our webpack configurations and just add this as a content.js file. So if I come here, what I need to do, I need to add the arrive as a dependency in this. So I'll say source, it's, what is this? It should be content /utils/arrive. This is what we need to do. Now I just need to, because I made changes into this file, I need to restart the server. So I'll close this and npm start again. Now this library will be added as a part of content script in the content.js bundle. So if I go here, refresh this and reload again, I see this, right? So it's working now. So this is what we wanted. So it's working now without any issues. So yeah, now instead of putting this live reload works, we need to put the button here. So for that, what we will do, we will create a button. So let's create a file. So minify button, let's name it that, /index.jsx. We'll have constant minify button. Now this is pretty much the component that we need. I think this is the only component that we are going to create. So export default minify button. So yeah, this is what we need. Now we need to return a button from here, which is a given. We will say minify HTML. So this should be the text of the button. Now if you would observe this area, in this we have this button group, right? And in this button group we have buttons, and we are adding not we, but CSS Battle is adding two properties here, two attributes, which are type and class. So if we will add these, we will get the same styling. So it will look like a part of CSS Battle itself. So let's do that. So we'll have a class name called button, and we also have a type named button. If you'll do this, so as you see, whenever I'm making any changes to this file, it's being reloaded again and again. That's because of the boilerplate that we had, and this file is doing all this work Chrome extension live reload, CXT live reload file. Now in the content.js, what we need is, instead of rendering this CS app, we would do Minify button. So we are rendering this Minify button. Let's do the same thing here. So when we do this, we can remove it from here, and yeah. So we see this Minify HTML. Now it's not taking the entire width that we would like it to. So let's try to change that using some CSS. If we need some custom CSS, so I want to put all of that in common.css file. I think app container, I think we don't need this, but let's keep it there. So we have a content script insertion point, right? That is the ID. So content script insertion point, that is there. And now with newer version of CSS, we can actually nest our styling. So we will do and button and say width 100%. So when I do this, reload this, nothing happens because I'm not watching the CSS files. But yeah, so now you see this, it has the same styling, exact same styling, and we have with all the other buttons, right? So this is our button that we have, and it's like if I go back to the CSS battle, I do not get any issues here, nothing is here, and then because the element is not there, I'm not getting anything. Now if I go down and try to go back to the same battle, let's say it was the fork one, yeah, this one, right? So if I go back to this, I should be able to see the Minify HTML file. So our CSS, our content script injection is working absolutely fine. So let's think about the functionality. Now to make this work, what we need, what essentially we need is that when we click this button, we need to collect the HTML which is there. And after collecting all of that HTML, we need to make one API call. So let's do that. In this file, let's have a on-click listener on this button. So we will say on-click, and this will be handle Minify, right? So this is the listener. In this we'll have handle Minify. So also when we have clicked on the button, until the HTML code is minified, we don't want to allow user to minify to click on that button again. So for that we are going to use one local state. We will say loading set loading equals to react dot use state. So we will use this, we'll have it false, and this will be our disabled will be equals to loading, right? Yeah, so this is our code for disabling it. Now in this handle Minify, whenever user is clicking on it, first thing we want to do is we want to say set loading is true. So it's in loading state. Then what we want to do is we want to get the HTML. So let's say we have one HTML variable and we want to get the raw HTML from the solution that we have. So this method is not defined or declared anywhere. This is what we need. And then we want to make one API call. Now it's always a good idea to make API call from background script instead of making from the content script. Simple reason, because when you are making any API call from your content script, you will be making from the domain or the origin that you are on. So in this case, we will be making one API call from cssbattle.dev. So we would need to whitelist this domain in our server to make sure that it's working fine. Now, if your extension is running on multiple domains, you need to whitelist all these domains, which is not a good idea. It's a security concern as well. Anybody can exploit this. So always whitelist only one and allow cross origin request only for one domain. which is your Chrome extension. So when you are making calls from your background.js background script, it will be taken care of. So the domain will be your Chrome extension ID. So that is the only reason, that is one of the main reason I feel you can you can make calls from your you should make calls from your background script. So let's see, now this is where we will be making a call. So let's say background call. So first thing is we need to send a message to our background script to say that now make one API call with this HTML. So first we will make one message request to our background. So sending a message from Chrome content script to a background script goes like this. So chrome.runtime.send message, right? And this is we do not have any tab ID or anything like that. Here we have type. Now this can be anything. This is your basically a payload. So I'm just saying this is API call. You can have different types of call. You can, this can be a call for saving something in local storage. So I'm just giving it a sort of a identifier. And I want to make a post call, right? I want to make a post call, and I want a body which will have this HTML, right? Where we'll have this HTML. And what else do I need? And let's say if I identify, let's say if I mention the endpoint also. So I want endpoint to be /minify, right? This is the endpoint. I think it's API /, but it's going to be common for all your endpoints in your Chrome extension. So let's use it like this. Now once this is done, what I need to do is, so this should make call to my server and get this HTML minified. Other thing is, it's not done, it's not completed yet, but let's move to our background script and see like what kind of things we need to declare there, and what do we need to write exactly to listen to this message. So if I'll go to my background.js file, this is what I have. This is what I got with the boilerplate. So let me just remove this, and what do we need? We need a listener first of all. So we'll say chrome.runtime.onMessage message.add listener, and we'll have a function which will have a request and sender. So these are the two things we'll get as arguments. So first I want to make one API call, and then when the API response has come, I want to return that to my content script. So to do that, one thing is, if you are not dealing with any asynchronous call, you can write a third argument here, send response, and you can send the response at the end of the function or whatever whenever you like. But since it's going to be a asynchronous call, because we will be making a server call, we cannot use this. This will not because it will run in a synchronous way. So this will not work. What we will do, first we will listen to the message. When we will have the response, we will send a new message back to the content script, and we will declare one more message listener in the content script also. So we'll have, let's say, tab ID, which will be, let's say, sender.tab.id. So this is how we can get the tab ID, from which tab we have received the request. So let's say if the request.type is equals to API call, then now this is the reason I've done this type thing is to make it more generic sort of listener. Otherwise we would have to write a lot of listeners. We have to write if else there also. So it's like that, request.type. So you can send us some other type, let's say else if request request dot type is equals to, let's say, local storage or ls, something like this. It's all up to you, whatever your use case is, and there you can handle all the tasks which are related to local storage if you want to save something in local storage in the background script. So it's like that. So I want to make one API call, and when I'm making an API call, I want to use a generic method for this also. So this is one more sort of abstraction. It's just a better, a cleaner way of writing it, so that you have all the configuration for sending API calls are at one place. So let's say do request. So this is not going to be much, it's just a one fetch API we are going to use. So we will have method in this. What's the method, what's the endpoint, and what's the body, right? And I think we can use a constant file somewhere in the code and make this even better, but let's not go there. It will take a lot of time, and we don't need that level of abstraction for, at least for this one. So now from here we will have a fetch request. We will make a fetch request to the server that we have created, so which is at http localhost port is 3001. We have API, and we are already sending everything after slash, right? So we can just say whatever endpoint that we have sent, so endpoint. So this is what we have. Then we have, this is the endpoint. We can write all the options that we want here. So first thing is, what is the method? So method is post. In our case, we have a body. Body we can just change it to a JSON string and send it across. So we have the body, and we want to include one header. So headers, we'll have content type. Now this is very common thing. This is nothing related to Chrome extension at this point. This is how you make API calls in JavaScript. Application / JSON. So yeah, this is what you need. So let's use this function to make that call. So we will do request. We need to pass the request that we have get, and then what we do, how fetch call works is you do .then, and then you have a response here. So we'll say response, and you just say response.json, and then you get the actual response, so which is your data. So let's say data. Now what we need to do is, after getting this data, we don't need to process it any further. What we want is, we want to just send it back to the content script. Now to do that, we will write something called, let's say, send message to content script. So this is what we want to do is, we need to specify the tab ID, which we have already taken in this one. So we need a tab ID, we need some sort of identifier, right? So what kind of message we are sending. This is not needed in our case, because this is just a basic Chrome extension. We are going to send only one, if this is one API call, so we don't need to write all of this, but this is a more generic way of dealing with things. So if you need to add one more call later on, if you need to pass one more message from background to content script, you can use this structure and it will work the same. So we have this data. Now we need an identifier. So identifier can be some, so let's say we are replacing. So replace HTML. So this is our identifier. This is text. And when we will get this message, this is the identifier. We are going to replace the HTML that we have in our container here. So this HTML should be replaced. Now let's define this method. So we'll have constant send message to content script. So first thing is, we are sending a tab ID, and second thing is, we are sending a payload, which is this. Now in this one, we need to send a message. To do that, we do chrome.tabs, because we are sending a message to a particular tab, message, and we will say tab ID. We need to specify this. Without this, you won't be able to send it. And then we just send the payload as it is, whatever we are writing here. So this will be the structure directly, so you can access the payload, dot identifier dot data, like that. So this should be sending the message to our content script now. Now we are getting a message to our content script, but we are not listening to any messages as of now. So what we should do, when we are loading this component, we should add our listener as well. So to do that, we just need to define the use effect. So get use effect, and inside this we will set up our listener, and we add this dependency array empty, because we want this to run only once. So this is where it will listen to background script messages, right? So this is where our listener will be. So how do we add that? We do chrome dot runtime dot on messages, same way that we have done in the background script, dot add listener, and the listener will be giving us a payload that we are passing from there, and this. Yeah, so after writing this is where we will be listening to our background script. We will say let's say console dot log, we will say payload. So this is where we will print the message for now. So this is all we are going to do for now. Now let's see what we need. Before getting to this part, after what we need to do after listening to the message, we need to first figure out that when we will be sending our message, we need to send the HTML also, and the HTML needs to come from here. So let's try to implement this get raw HTML function first. So this has to come from the dom.js. So let's define a function here. So let's do get raw HTML, and this won't take any arguments, and this is going to return the HTML in the end. So now to get started, what we can do is we can just simply say return document dot query selector. We will have how do we select this? So let's just see. If I go and inspect this, all these lines are contained inside this particular box, right? So I see that we have a role here, so which is role text box. So what I'll do, I'll just write one attribute selector here. So role is equals to text box. So this is all we need. If it's present, then get inner text from it. If not, just return the empty string. So this is gonna work for us. It's gonna give us the HTML, and then we can make the API call. Now what do we see here in these errors, right? That Chrome is not defined, get raw HTML is not defined. Raw HTML is not defined because we have not imported it. So get raw HTML is now here, but what we need now is the Chrome. When we are using Chrome API, it's very essential for us to declare in the file also that we have actually used Chrome APIs. Now how do we do that? At the top of the file, you can just simply go and write a comment, say global Chrome. You can spell that right. Yeah, so global Chrome is all you need to do. Now same issue we are getting with our background.js. So let's go to our background.js file and write the same thing here as well. So we will say global Chrome, and these errors should go away. Yeah, so it's fine now. Let's see. So we will go back to our extension, reload this if it's not reloaded, console. So let's click on this Minify HTML, and we need to see whether we are making an API call or not. It says invalid JSON. Let's go to network tab. We don't see anything. Let's make it a small. Okay, it went somewhere. Let me reload this. So this is a dev tool. Here if I click on this, I get one API call, I believe, and this API call is failing. So it says I'm able to pick the HTML, which is good, but why it is failing? It says parse error. It's not able to parse it. So if I go in the end, it says position absolute. Now this is not a valid HTML because the style tag is not closed properly and all of that. But why is that happening? So let's see. If you would closely observe, so all these lines, right? All these lines have these HTML code written inside it. Now the last line has position absolute, but as soon as I scroll, it will add more lines to it. Now this is something, infinite scrolling. You have seen this for pagination in a lot of websites. Now this structure is not present on the web page when we are trying to pick it up. So how we are going to make sure that we are still able to pick this up and move forward with this? So one thing is, we can scroll down to the bottom of the container whenever user is clicking on Minify HTML. We just want to scroll down to the bottom of the container and then we are going to pick the HTML. So if I show you how it will work, so let's just simply refresh this, and if I manually go and scroll to the bottom like this and then click on Minify HTML, in that case it should work. So let's try that out, whether it's working or not. I clicked on it and yeah, it worked and I got my response in the content. This is what we are printing here in payload, right? So this is what we are getting in that I have my data and minified HTML. Now all I need to do is replace the minified with the minified HTML with the original content that I have, and my job will be done here. So to do that, what we will do, first we will make sure that we are scrolling down to the container, and then we will get to this part. So instead of getting the raw HTML from here, we are going to modify this method, and we are going to say that first let's get all the available lines, right? So we will say get all available lines, whatever is available on the UI, let's take that. We'll say const lines node list, because if we will scroll down to the container and we will pick the content, then there is a possibility that whatever is going above, right, might not be rendered, and we will get the same issue that now we won't be able to pick whatever is coming above our view area. So to make sure, what we will do, first we will pick everything which is at the top, and then we will come down and then we will pick whatever is left, whatever is new. So for this, what we will do, we will say document dot query selector. We will select it in the same way we used attribute selector actually. So role is equals to text box, and after this we will say query selector all, and we will select all the lines, and to select all the lines the class is dot cm line. So this is the class. So I think this is what we need to get all the node list. Now node list is read only and we want to add more lines to it. So let's create an array out of this. So lines is equals to lines node list, right? So this is how we will create an array for this. Now what we need to do, we need to add the arrive event. So add arrive. So whatever new lines will be coming, we want to catch those. So add arrive event, we will say document dot arrive, and we will use the same selector. So role inside this, the text box, if new lines are coming, right, if this particular class is being added, right, if new lines are coming that we want to execute. So in this you will get the element, so I can name it whatever I want. I'm using line, and I want to do lines dot push line. So now we are adding more to the array, so we are adding all the lines together. Then what I want to do is, this is not executed, this is a listener that we have added. No lines are added until now. Now what we want to do, we need to scroll down to the bottom of the container. So we will say something like scroll container to bottom. scroll container to the bottom, and in this what should happen, it should just take care of scrolling part. So we'll say constant scroll container to bottom, and in this we have a container which has a class name, what, the CM scroller. So CM scroller container is actually responsible for taking care of this scrolling part. So we'll say const CM scroller is equals to document dot query selector, and we'll have CM scroller, and if we have this, yeah, so if, okay, I don't know what's happening, if CM scroller is there, then we want to scroll down. So how do you scroll to the bottom of the container? It's pretty straightforward. You do CM scroller container dot scroll top. So this is the property, and you want to assign the maximum scrolling height that you have. So scroll top should be equals to CM scroller dot scroll height. So scroll height. So this should scroll your container to the bottom. Now after scrolling, we would be adding more lines, right? So now this particular line of code is going to run. So let's assume that we have a inner text with empty string, and we want to add all the lines, whatever inner text we have for each line, we want to append that. So for this, what I'll do, I'll return a promise. So I'll say new promise, and it's not going to reject anything, it's mostly going to resolve, and I don't want to write any reject code here. So it's going to resolve, and I'll say set timeout, right? So I want to run this particular thing. Basically I'm trying to wait for 2 seconds at least, so that all the lines are added. So that I want to do. Now to do that, I can say 2000 for all the lines to be added, or let's try for 1 second. That is fine. I want to do lines dot map. I should not use map here because map returns an array. We don't need that. So for each, and I'll say line, and I would do inner text. So now this inner text should add inner text of each line. So line dot inner text. So this is how I'm going to get my inner text, and once I'm done with all the lines, I want to resolve this. So resolve inner text. Resolve inner text. So yeah, this is how I'll get the inner text for all the lines. So let's try. Now this is something I'm using, set timeout. So when I'm using this in Minify button here, I should make sure that it's asynchronous now. So I should wait for it to return the string. So I'll use await here. Now to use await, I need async. I need this function to be async. This is also very specific to JavaScript, nothing Chrome extension related here. Then we have what? Yeah, I think this is all we need. So let's try to test this out. I'll go, and I think it's already loaded, reloaded. But so let's say if I go here and open the service worker, so this is the network that I'm getting. Now if I click on so if I click on Minify HTML, it got scroll down, then I got the data. So I did not get any error. If I check the service worker also, I should be getting the Minify, and I got the entire HTML that I needed. So yeah, it's working fine. Now all we need to do is it's just replace this text in our DOM. So let's do that. So instead of printing it directly, what I'll do is I'll get this container where where the entire solution is. Now to get this container, what I'll do, I need to select it. So where it is, so it is actually the text box that we have been referring to. So let's do that. So I'll write document dot query selector, and this is how we were writing it, right? So now I think we have used this a lot in our Chrome extension. We have it here, we have it couple of times in our dom.js file. So it's a better idea, so it's a good idea to create a function that returns this. So you can create a function, let's say anything, like get solution container, and that function can only return this particular container, so that you don't have to write this again and again. And also, if you are doing this in your production application or anything like that, you should not directly write these strings, write them in a constant, as we have done for this one, this button selector. So it's a good way to of writing code. So after doing this, so after selecting this, what I need to do, I need to make sure that it is there, and it will be there because I've just sent the request, but still it's a good idea to check anyways. So I want to change the inner text of this container and make sure whatever I'll get from the payload dot data dot minified. I think this is where I'm getting data dot minified. So minified. So this is where I'm getting the response, and once I'm getting that, I want to set the loader back. So loader should be false now, and I can leave it to this. Now the reason we were sending this identifier, right? We were also sending the identifier replace HTML. Now why we were sending that? Because you can add these event listeners, these message listeners anywhere in your Chrome extension. So you want to make sure that when you are sending one message, it will be listened to all these listeners. So you want to make sure that for a particular message type, only a particular method or a particular block of code should be executed. So how generally people would deal with this is, they will write a switch statement, and then they will have a payload dot identifier, and inside this they will be writing this code in a case. So the case is in our case is replace HTML, and here they can write all of this code, and then you can write break in the end, right? So this is one of the way. It's saying invalid left in assignment. Okay, what just happened? So case is this document dot query selector minified shit loading. It's on 15.3. Okay. I don't see any issues as of now. Not sure. I mean, indentation should happen automatically. So okay, so what's happening, it's directly, I think directly trying to change the inner text or something like that. So what we can do, we can say const, we can assign this, or maybe just try to write the method that we were talking about, because it's a read only, right? Like we cannot do it like that, and because we are checking that it can be invalid or it can be null, so that can be a problem. So if I just go back and revert to this and remove this instead, then it should not be a problem, because it is sort of indicating that we are trying to assign something to null. I think if we can add a if statement on top of it, it should not be a problem, but checking that inline is a problem because that statement can be null. So yeah, I think this is all we need. So let's try to run this. It says expected a default case, but yeah, you guys can add that. It's not a big deal. So yeah, now we should be able to see our Chrome extension to minify the HTML. So let's click on this and see. So it okay. So yeah, I think it worked as expected. So it's minified. We can see like it has less characters, and if I try to submit the solution, it should submit this. So yeah, I got all better solution, a better result, better score by using less characters. So yeah, I hope this video helped you to understand, how you actually navigate through Chrome extension, how you handle and try to visualize the edge cases and what kind of issues people generally get. I think Arrive has saved me a lot. I have worked using this library, and it actually works all the time. I think whoever created this, I think that guy's name is there. I just want to give him a shout out, because yeah, I mean, whatever, like this is not a very big library. It's a very small piece of code, but it runs, and it works like a charm. So yeah, I think apart from that, you had help understanding Chrome extension, how you can build a similar one. If you were having any issues, or if you have any doubts, please put them in the comments. I'll try to answer as many as possible. Thanks for watching the video. See you in the next one.